If you've ever taken a stroll through the camera aisle in Walmart, you know that you can find action cameras for pretty cheap. Some cameras only cost around $25 and can film in high definition. So I started to wonder if any of these could be a good substitute for a GoPro. The Hero 10 just launched with a starting price of $499 here in the US, which isn't cheap by any means. So I thought I'd compare the cheapest action camera I could find to the Hero 10. And this camera right here happens to cost less than $10. Now with the Hero 10, this camera has a lot of features. Just to name a few, there's Hyper Smooth 4.0, Time Warp 3.0, 5.3K video, and more. The battery life is some of the best on any action camera out there, and it's durable enough to go in the most extreme of situations. On the other hand, you have the Piwoka Action Camera, which comes in at a whopping price of $8 online. This camera films video in 1080 at 30 frames per second, is waterproof down to 98 feet with the case, and can take 12 megapixel photos. So how does this camera compare to the Hero 10? Let's find out. First off, let's look at the design of this camera. It doesn't look like you have the option to take the battery out of the camera. On the Hero 10, you can take the battery out, so that's definitely a big difference. There is this little charging port on the side, and that's where you charge the camera. Now, one thing that stood out to me when I was looking at this camera online is the battery life. This camera is advertised to have an extremely long battery life, lasting around an hour with the LCD screen on. Now, for an action camera in general, that's pretty decent. Let alone an $8 action camera like this one. If the battery is able to last a full hour with the LCD screen on, that will be such a steal. Now, as we all know, the way that products are advertised online doesn't always hold up to be true, so I'm gonna have to see if the battery life can last that long. All you have to do is press and hold the power button in front, and as you can see, the camera is on. You got the LCD screen. There's currently no SD card in it. Now, looking at it for the first time, the LCD screen, it's okay. This LCD screen is not touch screen. You don't have the option to edit any settings or anything like that like you do on the Hero 10. Now, on here, it does tell you what mode you're filming in. It tells you battery life and whether or not you have an SD card. It also has the date on it, but this currently says it's July 6th of 2020, so I don't know if I can change that or not. Now, comparing the weight of the two cameras, the Hero 10 is about twice as heavy as the Piwoka. Of course, as you can see, the Hero 10 is a lot bulkier, a lot stronger, a lot thicker than this camera is. Another big difference is the feel. The outer casing of this camera is some kind of form of plastic, whereas right here on the Hero 10, it's some kind of form of hard metal. I'll get more into durability later in the video, but the Hero 10 is looking like it's going to be a lot more durable. Now, the color scheme and design of this camera actually isn't bad for how cheap it is. Something that's kind of cool is that both cameras have blue designs on them. I would say, of course, that the Hero 10 is a better looking camera, but when you're buying an action camera, you're not really going for the one that looks better. Okay, something that I just figured out, you have these two buttons on the side that enable you to zoom in or out on your video. I don't know if you guys can tell right here, but when I press this, it starts to zoom in, and then I can zoom back out. This camera also comes with an underwater housing that makes it waterproof down to 98 feet. Alright, now that I've talked about all the outer features of this camera, let's talk about the durability of these two cameras. Like I just said earlier in the video, when I hold these two cameras side by side, it's pretty easy to tell that the Hero 10 is a lot more durable. I definitely would not feel comfortable dropping this camera from even 3 feet in the air, so the durability on this camera definitely doesn't seem very good. The biggest difference about the outer casing is the material it's made out of. The Piwoka is surrounded by a plastic case, which by no means is as durable as the Hero 10. Now, before I keep going on, I do want to mention that in total, I bought this camera for around $12 on Amazon. That is because there is added tax on Amazon now, but another part is that I got it with a lot of accessories like the underwater housing and a few others. Now, the camera by itself costs around $8, which is insanely cheap in today's market. When talking about the speed and functionality of these two cameras, it isn't really close. The Hero 10 is so much faster than the Piwoka, and the LCD screen looks so much better. Now, granted, I've only been working with this camera for today, but holding it around in my hands and using some of the functions, I'm starting to realize that this camera probably wouldn't last you very long. If you were using this camera consistently, you might be able to get a few months out of it. But hey, when it only costs $8, you can always go out and buy another one. Alright, now that I've talked about the basics of this camera and compared it a little bit to the Hero 10, let's take it outside and see how the footage compares. Just to clarify, I was filming and 4K with my Hero 10. I didn't want to go all the way up to 5.3K because the Piwoka can only film in 1080. Looking at the footage side by side, it's pretty easy to tell which footage is the Hero 10. The footage captured by the Hero 10 is so much more crisp, and the colors look a lot more vibrant in the video. Probably the biggest difference is the stabilization. The Piwoka doesn't have any built-in video stabilization, whereas the Hero 10 has Hypersmooth 4.0. If you watched my review, you'll know that the Hero 10 has the best in-camera stabilization in the world right now. GoPros are without a doubt the most stable action cameras, and this footage proves that even more. You can also see a difference in the frames per second. The Piwoka can only film in 30 FPS, whereas the Hero 10 can film all the way up in 240. In this video, I was using 120 frames per second, and you can really see the difference. Alright guys, I just got back from testing these cameras outside, and I know all of you are in suspense to find out which one is the better camera, and after a lot of thinking, it's the Hero 10. All joking aside, I don't think this result will come as a surprise to any of you out there. Talking about starting prices, there's around a $490 price difference between these two cameras. Now I thought this would be a really fun experiment to do. I've never owned or used an action camera like this before, so for somebody who loves using action cameras like GoPros, it was great for me to test out some of the cameras on their lower end of the market. Talking about the Piwoka, I would say that it is worth the $8 price. If you're someone who's really limited with their budget and doesn't have the money to buy something like a Hero 10 right now, the Piwoka is definitely an option to film some of your hobbies. It's not something that's gonna last you forever, and definitely not something that's gonna capture the shots you hope it will, but if you need it to, this little camera will get the job done. If you take filmmaking seriously whatsoever, I would definitely stick to GoPros instead. Talking about the Hero 10, I have had this camera for a few weeks now, and after all of my time using it and even comparing it to this little guy right here, I do think that this camera is worth the price, especially if you get it with the GoPro subscription, which knocks $100 off the price of this camera. So technically you can get the Hero 10 for around $399 here in the US. Alright guys, now that is pretty much going to wrap up today's video, but before you go, make sure to smash that like button, comment down below what you think, and most importantly subscribe with notifications turned on so you never miss out on awesome videos just like this one. I'm Raymond Tiller, and I'll see you on the next video.